A pleasure to meet all at last, and here we are with some more HJN content. So, of course, what we're going to do here is something that I'm sure is going to be pretty big. Probably the first big episode of HJN for the season. For number 2281, we are in fact going to be talking about the almighty legendary undead creature known as zombies. Yeah. I feel like that this is something I've been holding back for a while now, and maybe it is time for me to get into a big topic. Zombies are in fact a fictional piece of the undead. A long told piece of folklore, quite similar to ghouls and other such creatures that inhabit the night, feast on the living, and terrorize various pieces of civilization. And as we know about it today, zombies are basically the more modern equivalent to that of these undead creatures that seem to prowl around and brutally attack and mutilate those that are in their path. And we've seen loads of different creatures over the years. The werewolf, the vampire, the Frankenstein monster, the ghosts, and hundreds of other unique pieces of life. Probably the biggest piece of modern life when it comes to these type of vicious, horrifying creatures is simply known by an organization called SCP. We'll probably get to that some other time though. But anyways, zombies are in fact a common piece in various parts of pop culture. If you're familiar with the game Plants vs. Zombies, well, that's pretty much a good start. One of PopCap Games' best pieces in mind. Up there with Peggle and Zuma. But then of course there come the various movies, starting all the way back with the likes of George Romero and his many film adaptations of the zombie itself. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and then of course there was that Italian ripoff called Zombie 2, and then of course loads of other films. But I would say one of the best that's remembered by most Americans is Zombieland, as well as its sequel, Zombieland Double Tap, both of which came out a decade apart. And it's highly likely, 15 years after the first, there could be a Zombieland 3. But we have yet to find out about that part. Other than that though, it's basically a good start. But for the most part, some people don't quite know about how zombies basically would act in real life. That's basically a troubling thought because after all, it has been confirmed. It likely is in fact just a piece of mythology. Mythology that has been replicated many times over in modern media. In the same way that most people try to revive the vampire, werewolf, Frankenstein monster, ghosts, and loads of other different things. But we always know that urban legend seems to be one of the biggest pieces of modern pop culture, while a lot of the others I previously mentioned were more so old-fashioned stuff. And while they still pose a lot of relevance today and are even popularized in many different ways possible that most older generations are rather impressed by, you know, it's urban legend. Like the iconic creepypastas, for instance, which I have talked a bit about before in HJN. If y'all remember that episode, I highly recommend you check it out. I can't believe that all this time has passed since I even bothered mentioning those. But you know what though? All this business I have in fact regulated towards HJN programming at this very point in history. It is basically a good judgment call to allow for me to move on to newer subjects and more importantly, new goals in mind. But I guess a conclusifying statement is the fact that, well, zombies are still a huge piece of mind. Not just in media, or books, or anything else of the sorts, but it is, in fact, a likely piece of a real-life problem. Knowing what we had gone through for 5 years, almost, it definitely is likely, oh boy, it definitely is likely that we could probably endure something like this. After all, implications of something like a zombie virus, or parasite, or fungus, there's been hundreds of different ways that a potential zombie outbreak, where one becomes mindless and brutally attacks and kills the living, there's plenty of possibilities and ideas that might come to mind when people would think about what a real-life zombie apocalypse should look like. But the thing is, we have yet to even find out even the slightest possibility of one's brain turning into mush to the point where they start to act like the undead themselves. And what's even more perplexing is the fact that zombies supposedly have a connection to certain religious imperfections. And that really does hamper it even further, especially for a lot of us. Religion is a huge problem, a huge conflict. Intolerance is certainly a thing that we will always have justice within. And that's certainly because there are no higher beings. As I've stated in another episode of HJN, a human is not a god. A god is not a maker of planets and solar systems. We serve nobody. We're considered a higher being, a supreme being, for a good reason. A supreme being that will probably live for millions of years to come. If not more, then, well, I guess it's because something will happen up there in space. Yeah, I feel like I'm just going off track here. But it's a common occurrence with such big topics like this. Such big topics with all these different tangents and all these different discussions and all these different controversies have all come together to eventually formulate one big episode of HJN. And with that being said, thank you very much for sticking around for this whole piece. Now, if you clicked away, that's okay as well. I mean, over 7.5 minutes worth of zombie talk probably isn't the best favor. But the thing is, this was a huge subject that I've been holding back for some time. And maybe I will talk a bit more about other horror creatures of the night, like the werewolf and the Frankenstein monster, but those might have to wait until another time. So, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side if you would like to see more on this channel.